Hi, this is How CSI's Fake Evidence to Get Convictions, Episode 1, The Three Initial Guarantors of Guilt. In this episode, I'm going to cover the three tricks that cops use right at the beginning, right when they first start investigating, to make the innocent seem guilty and to get the conviction. Okay, the three tricks that most cops know are: 1. Find out if the suspect has any prior arrests. And we're going to get into the why of these in a little bit. 2. Broadcast your narrative before you investigate. And the narrative is what you say happened, like a truck crashed into a truckload of tomatoes. So whatever it is that you're saying happening, that's your narrative. Broadcast your narrative before you investigate. And we're going to tell you why. And then 3, collect and don't collect evidence based on the suspect's defense. And that should be pretty obvious. You know, if the suspect says he was at home, then don't get video from his house, because you're just going to help him. But we got to back up to number 1. We're going to start with a relatively simple setup so far as crimes go. A girl is found dead in an apartment. In her phone, there's a text from her boyfriend. It says, "You're done, bitch." The boyfriend has a prior arrest for writing bad checks and for assault with a deadly weapon. Though really it was just because he was about to get a parking ticket and he tried to drive away, and the parking Nazi said, "Hey, you almost hit me." And so, they wrote him up for assault with a deadly weapon on a public safety officer. Okay, so police find this girl dead in her apartment because her mother, who dates a cop, calls to say she hasn't heard from her daughter, just a nice, normal-looking 20-something girl. Initially, police don't know why she's dead. It's going to be days before they get the autopsy results back. But they find the text from her boyfriend that says, "You're done, bitch." And she has a little scratch, a little mark on her right cheek. And the mother says, "Yeah, that boyfriend's a bad guy. He's into drugs. And my daughter gave indications that, she was kind of afraid of him. Like, she told me that she was afraid he might do something to her." So police look up the boyfriend and find out he's got these prior arrests, assault with a deadly weapon and check fraud. And this is the first sneaky cop trick. Police know that this guy is someone who's going to be easy to paint as a murderer. Any mistakes that they're later found to have made, or lies, or maybe cutting corners, will be overlooked as having been done in good faith. Nobody's going to care. This guy's a bad person. The public's going to be happy and thankful that police, did what they could to get this ne'er-do-well off the streets. So now, because of this, the prior arrests, it becomes basically a fun game to see how hard they can screw this guy over for sport, because the public's got kind of a bloodlust. They like seeing people go down, and anything police do to this guy is going to be applauded by, either the vicious public or, the kind of the, what do they call them? The kind of the naive, dorky people who think it's all honest, to basically to get even for OJ and Casey Anthony. Tired of these clever lawyers getting people off. Screw this guy. We want to see him go down. What are they? Who are the goody-goodies? That's right. Most people just want to see them go down. The goody-goodies, they think this is all real. Like, oh my God, this terrible man, he's into drugs. He killed this girl. That's what they said. So a cop writes an arrest affidavit. It says, "Young girl was found dead with marks on her cheek, possibly indicating some kind of struggle. Text and phone from boyfriend says, 'You're done, bitch.' Mother says boyfriend was known physical danger to girl. Upon making contact with boyfriend, he refused to tell us where he'd been that day, was uncooperative, said it's none of our business. Boyfriend's food stamp card was found in the dead girl's apartment. We have probable cause to believe the boyfriend made threats to the girl and had been in her apartment sometime prior to her death. So we're requesting this affidavit to arrest him on preliminary charges of assault, making threats, and hold him without bond pending further investigation. At this point, after they've written this arrest warrant and arrested him, this is when comes the second sneaky cop trick. Before investigating further, police have to broadcast their narrative. They have to tell the whole world that this guy killed this girl. So they immediately call the night editor at the local paper. And local papers are broke. They can't afford investigative reporters. They can't afford editors. They can't afford lawyers. And so local papers depend on police for juicy local gossip that they can print with immunity. They can't be sued, and they can sell local subscriptions and try to stay in business for another month. And in exchange for that, that gossip that they can basically get for free from cops, they make police look good. They make them out to be heroes catching villains. They embellish whatever police say, and they got no possibility of being sued. So it's easier than just copy pasting Twitter sports scores. They just go, oh yeah, according to police, guy killed this girl. I mean, after they say the words according to police, they can say any damn thing. And so it's a real easy way for a local paper to stay in business. And the cops depend on this. It helps them a ton. Because the paper's going to put out a headline and a story that describes exactly what the cops want people to think happened. It's going to say, a girl found dead under suspicious circumstances. Boyfriend is being held in the county jail without bond. Boyfriend has a prior arrest for assault with a deadly weapon. When people are first arrested, it takes a moment to set what the bond is. You arrest them, and I guess a judge or somebody sets the bond. So when the first moment they're arrested, they're always held without bond. It takes a moment to find out what that bond is. It can take a whole day. It can take a while. So the police can always tell the paper, and the paper can always print, girl found dead, boyfriend being held down at the county jail without bond, has prior arrest for assault with a deadly weapon. So now the whole town knows what happened. And this is before they've even investigated. They haven't done jack yet. They haven't looked for witnesses. They haven't done anything. And already the whole town knows what happened. This evil, ne'er-do-well guy who nobody likes killed this sweet girl who every other guy wished they could have dated. And so everybody wants justice. So now the investigation can begin. This is where the magic starts to happen. The police bring a picture of the boyfriend to the apartment complex where the girl lived, and they start asking the neighbors, did anyone see this guy here? This girl died yesterday. They're like, yeah, I read about that in the paper. Everybody's talking about it. We all heard about it. Did you see him here? Well, the neighbor read that the boyfriend killed the girl, and she's seen the guy before, so she immediately says, yeah, I think I did see him. I think I saw him, go out. He was here yesterday afternoon, right before the police came. Yeah, I saw him walk out. I think he was in a hurry, actually. He was running. You want to know how I recognize him? Well, I've seen him here a lot of times. He's always coming and leaving around that time. And I when the police came, I remember. I believe. Yeah, I saw this guy run out. I saw him leave right around that time. Now, what the neighbor said is just complete made-up nonsense. It was invented in her head at that very moment that the cop asked her. Because, she wants to be a good person and not screw up the case. And she really has seen the boyfriend there and knows his pattern. And she just wants to help. And, the neighbor wouldn't know what she's supposed to do to help if she hadn't already read it in the paper and heard all the gossip. But having read what supposedly happened in the paper, the neighbor at some point actually has convinced herself that her hazy recollection of seeing the boyfriend Yeah, actually, I think it was yesterday. Yeah, it was right before police came. And the neighbor imagined, she's like a dog who's about to get a biscuit. She's really done good here. Because the police already know this guy killed this girl. And they don't want him to get away. So anything anyone can do at this point, this bad guy taking advantage of this girl, this neighbor has just done a great thing. And it all goes back to they broadcast their narrative, and the guy had prior arrests. So neighbor's like, oh my God, this guy assault with a deadly weapon, and now he killed this girl. I mean, I gotta help her, I do. I think I did see him run out. Come to think of it, it's completely magical. We already have basically a witness of our murderer fleeing the scene, a free witness, because of these first two tricks. And it's really that easy to manufacture evidence of murder. Now you might wonder, doesn't the apartment complex have security cameras? Don't they record everything? Is it really so easy just to get some, witness to read it in the paper? Go, oh yeah, I saw him run out. Yeah, there's physical evidence like videos and stuff, but the physical evidence is not the focus like it is on TV. Physical evidence is neat on TV, CSI shows, it's all sciencey. It's not as much the focus in real life criminal prosecution. Physical evidence doesn't read the paper. Physical evidence doesn't care if the boyfriend has prior arrest. And so one of the reasons why real world witnesses work much better is because, unlike physical evidence, witnesses respond to the first two tricks. In criminal cases, like I've shown you, it's very easy to find a witness to recite your narrative or say exactly what you want them to say, whereas physical evidence, like say videotape, it's kind of rigid. Cops have to change it themselves, which is a little harder, and there's some ways they can do that, which I'll get to. But it's preferable to have witnesses who just recite your narrative. They're much more flexible and robust. And prosecutors can also manufacture witnesses. They have a lot of drug dealers in the jail facing life sentences, and they tell the drug dealers, you swear that you saw with your own eyes that thing that you read in the paper. You say, oh yeah, like the guy at the apartment complex. They say, oh yeah, I saw that. Or swear that the suspect told you, yeah, I know this guy. He told me he went over there and killed her. Swear that the suspect told you what he did. Swear that the suspect told you he did what the paper said he did. We'll let you out of prison. And, then it doesn't matter how wrong or how big a lie what the drug dealer swears to later turns out to be. The sheriff gets that conviction today. The prosecutor gets that conviction today, and they get elected to higher office for being successfully tough on crime. And then, everything the drug dealer said is a lie, but by the time the appeals court sorts all that out, 10, 15 years later, everybody's moved on. They're all long gone. So lie today, get the conviction, pay the price 15 years from now. And witnesses can do that. Now, once you have a random stranger who's not connected to the case up on the stand, backing up your narrative as a witness, that's enough for the jury to convict someone. But even the most honest witness, in other words, a witness who wasn't just straight up manufactured by the first two tricks, even the most honest witness is going to misremember things and get things wrong. Especially when a murder trial, sometimes comes, 5 years later, 4 years later. They'll say something happened at 3 o'clock when the video says it happened at 4 o'clock. They'll say a person was wearing red when the person was wearing green. And if the physical evidence contradicts the witness, your witness is going to lose his credibility because there's physical evidence. So witnesses are good because they change. That's what makes them good. They change in response to these two tricks. But when they do, physical evidence can then damage their credibility when they're reciting the narrative you want them to recite. So it's so easy to get these witnesses. I've given you a couple different ways, and then the physical evidence is in some ways almost more likely to hurt than help your case. Whereas as long as your witnesses actually know your narrative, they can do what physical evidence can, and that is they can adjust what they say on the stand to fit your narrative. Now, there's another problem with physical evidence, and that is that it doesn't tell a story. It only tells a piece of a story. A storyteller who sits around a fire, tells you a ghost story or old-timey, person who went from town to town telling stories. They didn't have one person come up and tell one part of the story, and then another person come up and tell another part of the story, and another person come up and tell another part of the story. But that's how physical evidence is presented in trials. You have a fingerprint technician tell you about the fingerprints, and a guy with a phone bill tells you there was a phone call, and then a guy who went and got the video tells you he found video, and then another person tells you that you recognize the person on the video. So it takes days for each person to show a little piece of the story. And so the jury's like, okay, so there was a phone call at 2:45 p.m. And then that witness, that little technician who got the phone bill, he goes off the stand. The jury goes to lunch. Jury comes back from lunch. And then another witness comes up and he says, I got this video. And this person says they recognize the boyfriend in the video walking out at 3:13 p.m. And then the jury's like, hold on. What time did that last witness say that phone call was? Now, they don't get to take that testimony into the jury room with them. They might get the phone bill or something, but they've already forgotten by the time they get to the new witness. And so physical evidence is all broken up into pieces. It can't really tell a story because it takes so many individual technicians who collected and processed the different pieces to all, give their little piece. It just can't compare to a single person who goes up there and says, yeah, the boyfriend, I saw him walking out or running out at 2:45 p.m. or whatever. But what if there is actually a video that shows the boyfriend wasn't there? Well, first, video can show something did happen, but video can't show something didn't happen. Maybe the camera wasn't working. Maybe the boyfriend avoided the camera. He came into the apartment complex a different way. Or maybe the manager did spend hours looking at the video in response to the first two tricks because he's trying to help the case. But he didn't see the boyfriend anywhere. Is he going to call the police and say, hold on, I don't think the boyfriend was here? No, he's still going to respond to these first two things. He doesn't want to screw up the narrative because he doesn't want to, seem like a jerk. He assumes that the police have some other evidence that the boyfriend did this. He doesn't know what the evidence is, but he knows the police have the evidence. And the manager wants justice for his tenant, who the paper said was murdered. So the manager is just gonna keep it to himself if he doesn't see the boyfriend on video, because it's not his place to stick his neck out and try to go against justice and say this didn't happen. He's just going, I can't find him, but that doesn't mean he wasn't here. So I'm just keep my mouth shut rather than ruin their case and have this awful guy who was arrested and who murdered this girl get away with it. So I'm not going to say a thing. Okay, so at trial, 2 years later, the defense might ask the police about the apartment video. They would say, Detective Joe, didn't you try to go get the video from the apartment complex? And the police will just say, we assigned someone to do that, but they were unable to locate the manager. And then the defense might ask the manager, did you have video at the apartment complex? And the manager will say, I think the cameras were not working that day. Remember, this is like 5 years after this girl died. So the manager can go, I think the cameras were probably just not working that day. I don't remember. I just don't remember if the cameras were working that day. They may not have been. And then, the prosecutor is going to actually use this because, remember, that's how witnesses are so beautiful. If we had video, it would all be over right now. But now the prosecutor can come up and say, well, is that something that tenants and visitors might know if there was a camera not working? And the manager's going to go, you know what? That's true. Sometimes the camera's obviously broken and someone will complain about it, and I put in a work order. So in theory, a person might be able to say, yeah, I know the camera's not working today. It's a little suspicious. And the prosecutor will then say, well, so a person might see a camera's not working, and then he could take advantage of that if he wanted to, right? And then the manager's going to go, sure, I guess he could. If he knew the camera wasn't working, it's possible a person might take advantage of that. Anything strange in the evidence, you can turn it on the boyfriend to make the whole thing more sinister. He chose a day when the camera wasn't working. See, that's what human witnesses can give you. You can lead the jury with all kinds of total garbage. You can change it and tie it up, and you got witnesses who all know this is a bad guy, who all know that he killed this girl, and so they're gonna do what people do, which is be devious liars who want to see this guy go down. Whereas a video doesn't care if the guy's found guilty or not. So you do not want that video evidence. But wait, can't the boyfriend get video from his own apartment complex to prove an alibi? Remember, the boyfriend is in jail, no bond. And it's going to be months before the public defender gets the evidence against the boyfriend and even goes over to the jail to talk to the boyfriend. So all the boyfriend can do is call his parents and say, I have no idea what they're talking about. I have not been at my girlfriend's house in a month. I was home all day. She had a new boyfriend. They should be investigating him, not me. The boyfriend's parents aren't going to think to go to the boyfriend's apartment complex and get the video that would show his car never left the parking lot that day, because the boyfriend's parents assume police are honest. And the police are going to investigate that kind of thing to find out what the truth is. So this brings us to the third sneaky trick. Police will listen to the recordings of the boyfriend's jail phone calls, and they will specifically not investigate the things which the boyfriend says could prove he is innocent. Cops don't want to embarrass themselves or make it easy for this dirtbag to get off. So when police hear the boyfriend tell his parents he was home all day, they're going to make sure to not get video from the boyfriend's apartment complex, which might show his car sitting there all day around the time of the murder. And remember, the boyfriend is not even allowed to possess videos in jail, so he has no idea what the police do and don't have. By the time the boyfriend sees the evidence years later and tries to get the video from his apartment, it will be long deleted. So, police can find out what their narrative is, find out what the suspect's defense is, because he's not going to see that public defender for months. If he even tries to tell anybody, like his parents on the jail phone, that he's not guilty, they're going to know what evidence would prove his innocence, and they're going to collect and don't collect evidence based on the suspect's defense. Don't go get that video which would show he was home all day. And it's because this poor guy's trying to tell his parents the truth, that he's innocent, just by uttering that little statement on the jail phone, guarantees that he's going to spend life without parole, because he just told police what evidence to not collect to make sure they don't look like asses and to make sure that they get voted back in the next election. So this poor guy is in jail trying to, defend himself, tell his parents, tell his own family that he's innocent, and he's just digging his own grave. Because, suppose police found a glass on the girlfriend's table and they swabbed it for DNA. Now that they heard the boyfriend say on the jail phone that the girl has a new boyfriend who's been over there, police are going to make sure to not send that DNA swab to the lab. Because now police know it might come back matching the new boyfriend, and that would make for an easy defense. Police may even just throw that DNA swab away and never mention it in any kind of log, because it's going to create confusion if it shows that unknown person's DNA was on that glass at the scene. And so this poor guy is on the phone trying to save his freaking life, and he doesn't know that the result of everything he does to prove his innocence is police going out and collecting and not collecting evidence based on his defense and his claims of innocence. because they do not need this asshole embarrassing them at this point and hurting their chances of getting reelected. So now he's on a fucking railroad, and everything he says while the investigation is still going on, they're going to go out there and fucking throw away every single piece of evidence that he says on the jail phone to his parents might help him. They are not going to be made fools of at this point by a dirtbag who's been arrested who tried to kill a parking Nazi, and who the mother said was a danger to the girl, and she's friends with a cop. So now, after all this, the autopsy comes back, and it says the girl OD'd. And her body temperature says that she was dead already at 2 o'clock. But wait, that neighbor who swore she saw him running out, it was at 5 o'clock that she saw the boyfriend running out. So this doesn't add up. The girl had to be long dead by the time the boyfriend ran out, Well, why didn't the boyfriend call an ambulance? See, we already know that the boyfriend killed her. That's our narrative. And so now everything else has got to fit into that narrative. So we already know that he killed her. And now we know how he did it. He poisoned her with pills. He tricked her somehow. He put it in her drink. Maybe they got into an argument about her new boyfriend, hence the scratch on her cheek. The boyfriend slipped her pills somehow. Remember, after they heard that she had a new boyfriend on the jail phone call, the police made sure to not test the glass that they found on the girlfriend's table. So now if they have a photograph of that glass, it can play any sinister role. They can fit it into this new component of the narrative that she OD'd. Well, that glass, he slipped her pills in her drink or something. So we have this inconsistency of the guy running out at 5 o'clock, whereas the girl died at 2 o'clock. Okay, so the neighbor goes up on the stand, and the prosecutor says, what do you do for a living? And she says, well, I'm a nurse at the Veterans Hospital. How long have you been doing that? I've been doing it for 15 years. Can you tell us what you saw that day? I saw the boyfriend leaving in a hurry. And how do you know it was him? I've seen him leaving many times. And about what time was this that you saw him running out? It had to be after 5, after I get off work. Now the boyfriend takes the stand and says, I wasn't even there. And the prosecutor says, well, then how come a neighbor says he saw you running out at 5 o'clock? Or she saw you running out at 5 o'clock? I don't know. Is the neighbor lying? I guess so, sir. It says here that you recently pled guilty to misdemeanor assault on a public safety officer. Is that true? Yes, sir. And you've been convicted of check fraud, wrote a few bad checks? Yes, sir. Now, the coroner says this girl died at 2 o'clock. Why didn't you call an ambulance when you saw your girlfriend was unresponsive? I wasn't there. Your food stamp card was found lying on the kitchen table. The neighbor saw you there. Do you deny that this is your food stamp card in this picture? See, once you assume that someone is a murderer, evidence, it just makes no sense. It makes the guy seem more sinister because it's so weird. Evidence shows that the victim died at 2 o'clock. Evidence shows that the defendant remained in her apartment for another 3 hours, looking at her dead body. He could have helped her. He could have called an ambulance, but he didn't. Instead, he sat for hours and sadistically watched her die, waited to make sure she was dead. That's what a neighbor saw. That's what the evidence shows. So, a girl either OD'd or committed suicide, and her dirtbag boyfriend got life without parole. The sheriff got reelected. The district attorney got reelected. And the only evidence was that a neighbor saw him fleeing the scene. And it all comes back to the 3 sneaky cop tricks. 1, choose a person with a prior arrest. The public will never hold you accountable or even care when you lie to lock up a person like that. 2, broadcast the cop narrative before starting to investigate. In this case, there wouldn't even be a witness, except that cops made sure to broadcast their narrative at the beginning of the investigation. And that way, any witness knows what to say to get justice. And the cops have already screwed with the memory of every witness before they even, turn on the tape recorder or talk to them. In other words, if a witness, he doesn't quite remember what he saw, but he read in the paper what happened, it's going to screw with his memory. Even if he's trying to be honest and he's a do-gooder, he's going to help. And so they manufactured their witness with number 2, and it worked. And 3, don't collect evidence that could show that the suspect is innocent or hurt your narrative. People in jail can't get evidence that proves their innocence. Don't do it for them. If you find out, something different may have actually happened, like maybe it was the new boyfriend, or you find out what the suspect's defense is going to be, you're going to know what evidence to avoid that can help that suspect, screw up your case and make you as a cop look stupid. You're not, for some dirtbag who was arrested, you're not going to give him a chance to make you look stupid. It's better he spends his freaking life in prison for something that didn't happen than that a dirtbag freaking assaulting drug user walks and makes you look freaking stupid because it's his fault for being a dirtbag. Anything that a cop does is a result of this guy's own poor life decisions. There's no way a cop is going to have his career or his reputation hurt fucking one ounce on behalf of a dirtbag like that. There's even another trick, just holding the suspect without bond. Because even his own family is going to think he did it, and it's going to be hard for him to communicate with them or prove that he didn't do it from jail. And especially not without giving police that information that they can use to collect and not collect evidence based on his defense. And so when he's held without bond, in a few months, he's going to have lost all his friends. He's going to have gone totally broke, not making any money in jail. Your car's been towed, your furniture's been evicted. And then in a year, all the evidence of his innocence that he could have gotten, send that glass DNA swab to the lab to see if it was the new boyfriend, get that video that shows his car was in the apartment complex all day, his own apartment complex. In a year, while he's held without bond, all that evidence of his innocence is going to be long gone. And the only thing that's going to be left is the story police wrote down of what happened and the witnesses who read it and were willing to back it up. And there's even another thing going on here when you broadcast this false narrative. And that is, look, this was a very weak circumstantial case. I mean, the girl OD'd. How are you going to say the guy killed her? Well, the problem is that why is he lying to the jury? Why is he acting guilty? He could have admitted that he was there. He could have been, said, well, maybe I thought she was asleep and I left. I didn't know she'd OD'd. I didn't know she took the pills. I was just hanging out with her and I left. But instead, he comes up on that stand and claims that he wasn't even there. I mean, why come up and insult the jury with lies when we got this nurse from the Veterans Hospital who saw him walking out of there at 5 o'clock? If he'd just come clean with us and said the same thing as the witness said who read it in the paper, that said country, and so when you manufacture any like goody witness who reads this paper and backs it up, and then the suspect, contradicts that, it's just going to make the suspect seem like a liar and conscious of guilt and everything else. So you make one, fake recovered memory witness by broadcasting this narrative, and it's going to destroy that guy. Because he's never going to admit to something that's not true. And when he goes up against that neighbor who's just a nurse at the Veterans Hospital or whoever that goody witness is, it's just going to destroy his credibility. It's going to make it look like he's lying to the jury. It's going to make it look like he's hiding something. It's going to destroy him. Now, all this is a bit complicated and hard to follow. And And it really is. This is a long video, relatively speaking, and that's why innocent people accused of crimes get taken advantage of by pros and veterans in the system, because cops know all this stuff. Prosecutors know all of it. Drug dealers in prison know all of it. And innocent people and juries have no idea all the crap that cops and witnesses do and what kind of crooked police scams that they'll run on people, and that their own neighbors will even then go and vote for cops who railroaded this guy because he's a past arrest drug dealer or whatever. If you want to see an example of a real world case where police used every kind of trick and lie to convict an innocent person, read about the Mandy Mae Jackson case at SeminoleScam.com. That's Seminole like the Indians, scam as in scam.com. Or if you want to, hear some policy proposals to maybe punish police for producing false testimony or things like that, go to copstoprison.org.